Hi, today I want to show you a small example of GORM outside of Grails. Grails is a rapid development framework that allows you to build database-driven applications using the Groovy JVM language. And GORM would be the ORM layer inside of the Grails framework. So let's go back to our application example. So this is a very small example where basically we configure a set of Spring Beans and then we attempt to store some domain objects to the database. The build tool is Gradle, but you can also use Maven after generating the Maven pom.xml using Gradle. In terms of main resources, we have our build file, the Spring Bean definitions, a resource bundle to translate the validation constraints error messages, the log4j configuration. There are many things to take into account when you decide to use GORM outside of Grails. You have to be very careful about the versions of your dependencies for Grails, Groovy, and the Spring framework. In terms of main Grails dependency, you can just use Grails Bootstrap and Grails GORM. For all your domain operations, you can either use transactional services or use directly with new session or with transaction on your domain class instances. So let's check out this project from GitHub. Let me clone this project and then we'll switch to the project folder. So at the root of our project we have the build file called build.gradle. At the top you have a set of Gradle plugins, some metadata, the repository's definition, and the list of dependencies. We have some dependencies for login, the main Groovy dependency, Grails GORM, and Grails Bootstrap for Grails dependencies. We'll use H2 as database, and all the rest of the dependencies are related to the Spring framework. We can also generate a Gradle wrapper using the wrapper task, and we would also generate the Maven pom file. Let's take a look at the main project resources. The Spring Beans.groovy file contains the Spring Beans definition. We have a message source, the data source definition. We configure the GORM session factory, and you have a couple of instructions to scan a base package for annotations. The log4j.properties file contains the log4j configuration. We log everything to the standard output. The messages.properties file contains two customizations for validation error messages. All the remaining messages are from another blank Grails application, copy-paste. Now let's take a look at the source code. We'll start with our domain class. We have a simple class called person with two fields, first name and last name, and two validation constraints. So both the first name and the last name should have a size between 5 and 10 characters. And to interact with that domain class, we'll use a service. We have a class called person service that allows us to save a person, validates its domain constraints, and we are also able to fetch all the persons from the database. The default implementation of our person service just delegates all the calls to the person domain instance. Our main class is called application. At the beginning, it loads the Spring Beans definition from the class path. and then we retrieve the message source and the person service Spring Beans. After that, we'll attempt to store two persons with the first name Eve and Romero. So if the validation of the domain class constraints is successful, we store the person instance to the database. Otherwise, we dump all the validation error messages to the standard output using a logger. So let's go to the shell and we'll attempt to run our main class. I will use the Grails daemon to speed up execution. Let me split my screen into two and we'll switch to our main class. I don't have any Java files, so it will just compile some Groovy code. And then it will attempt to store two person instances inside our H2 in-memory database. Let's wait a little bit. So inside the console, we see that the validation failed for one person domain instance. So for Eve, it looks like the first name is too small. So if we go back to our person domain class, we see that the first name should have a size between 5 and 10 characters. If you look again at messages inside the console, we see that the application was able to successfully persist the second person domain instance. And at the end, when we try to load all the persons from the embedded database, we only have one person object with the first name Romero. I hope that you found this presentation useful, and thank you for your time.